Lord, thank you for this miracle. Thank you for these small steps. What the doctor said was impossible. Mr. Noah arrived home earlier than expected that afternoon. His board meeting had been canceled, and as he settled into his security room, he pulled up the camera feed with familiar heaviness in his chest. He had hired Amara just that morning, a black caregiver, soft-spoken and composed, and like every employer who had been burned before, he was already waiting to be disappointed. He had trusted people before, too many times, too freely. Some had lied directly to his face. Some had stolen from his home without blinking. Some had treated his twin daughters, Lily and Laya, not as children deserving love and patience, but as inconveniences, as burdens wrapped in wheelchairs. And every single time, Noah had been left picking up the pieces of broken trust while trying to hold together two little girls who had already lost more than any child should ever lose. So no, he had not hired Amara with hope. He had hired her with doubt. He was watching her now, not to see her succeed, but to catch her failing. He leaned toward the screen, and then his breath left his body entirely. The two wheelchairs on the monitor were empty. His mind scrambled to make sense of what he was seeing. Lily and Laya, his daughters, his miracle girls, the three different specialists had looked him in the eye and told him would never walk again following the accident, were not sitting where they always sat. They were not still. They were not helpless. They were standing. Their tiny legs trembled violently beneath them. Their faces were drawn tight with the kind of effort that comes from willing your body to do what the world says it cannot. But they were upright, and they were moving, slow, careful, trembling steps, one after another, crossing the living room floor toward Amara. Amara was kneeling several feet away, her arms stretched wide open, her face turned completely toward the girls. Tears ran freely down her cheeks. Her lips were moving, not giving instructions, not coaching technique. She was praying, whispering gratitude to God for every single step those little legs managed to take. She had no idea the cameras were capturing every second. She was too absorbed in the miracle unfolding directly in front of her. "Good job, my angels," she whispered on the screen. "One more step. You can do it. You can do it." Noah's hands began shaking against the desk. He had spent millions, rehabilitation specialists flown in from 3 different countries, experimental therapies, cutting-edge equipment, consultations with the most decorated neurologists his money could reach, and every single one had delivered the same verdict, dressed up in different medical language. The damage was too severe. The girls would not walk again. He had slowly, painfully, reluctantly made peace with that truth. And now, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, with a woman he had known for less than 8 hours, the impossible was simply happening on a grainy security feed. He ran. He left the security room at a pace he hadn't moved in years and pushed open the living room door, and there it was, live and real and undeniable. Lily stumbled forward and fell laughing into Amara's open arms. Laya followed a breath later, giggling, reaching, alive in a way that shattered every wall Noah had built around his grief. Noah's knees hit the floor before he even made the decision to kneel, and for the first time since the accident, since the funeral, since the long, hollow years of managing pain instead of living, he wept. Not from loss, from something he had almost forgotten the shape of: hope. "How?" he managed, his voice fractured. "How did this happen?" Amara stood slowly, Lily cradled against her chest, Laya leaning into her side. She shook her head gently, as though the credit embarrassed her. "Sir, I was just cleaning. I wasn't doing anything special." She explained it simply, the way people describe moments that are too sacred to dress up. She had been dusting shelves in the hallway. She hadn't even realized she was singing out loud until the song was already filling the room.
a worship song, one her mother used to sing during the worst seasons of her life, during the moments when everything felt impossible and the only thing left was faith. "I was singing about God making a way," she whispered, "where there seems to be no way." Noah felt something move through him that he couldn't name. Amara's voice dropped lower. "And then I heard them, sir, small voices." She looked down at the twins. "They said, 'Mama.'" The room went completely silent. "They called out for their mama," Amara continued softly, "and when I turned around, they were already standing, holding the wall, trembling, but they were standing." She pressed her lips together, steadying herself. "They weren't looking at me, sir. They were looking past me, like they could see someone else standing there." Noah could not speak. "They kept saying 'Mama' as they walked," she said, "so I dropped everything, and I knelt down and I just cried. I said, 'Thank you, Lord. If you're using my worship, let your will be done.'" Lily looked up at her father with clear, steady eyes. "Daddy," she said simply, "we saw Mama. She was smiling." Noah collapsed forward again, and this time grief and gratitude arrived together, because his mind went immediately to the accident, the lake, the storm that came from nowhere, the sound of the boat breaking apart, her wife throwing her body around their daughters without a single moment of hesitation, her eyes finding his one last time before the water closed over everything. She had shielded them with her life, and now she understood. Perhaps heaven had simply finished what her love had started. He looked at Amara differently in that moment. The suspicion that had sat behind his eyes all day was gone, completely dissolved. "You didn't steal from me," he said, his voice raw. "No, sir," she said quietly. "You gave me back my daughters." He gathered Lily and Laya into his arms and held them with the kind of desperation that only fathers who have nearly lost everything can understand. For years he had placed his faith in doctors and machines and the power of money to solve what love could not. But today a worship song had reached somewhere that none of it had ever touched. And somewhere beyond what he could see or prove or explain, he felt her, his wife, still present, still protecting, still whispering courage into their little legs. Months passed, and the house transformed. The wheelchairs were folded and stored carefully, not hidden in shame, but preserved as monuments to how far love had carried them. Lily and Laya grew stronger with every passing week. Some days were slow, some mornings were harder than others, but fear had moved out of that house, and it had taken suspicion with it when it left. Noah stopped checking the cameras every hour. He stopped bracing himself for betrayal the way a man braces for a punch he knows is coming. He stopped building walls before people had even given him a reason, because the woman he had hired with doubt had returned to him something no amount of money had been able to buy. She had given him back his faith. Amara did not stay the maid. She became anti-Amara, and the twins made sure everyone knew the difference. They refused to sleep without hugging her goodnight. They sat beside her in the kitchen. They braided her hair and dissolved into laughter over nothing, and every so often they would ask her to sing that same song, the one about God making a way, and the whole house would go quiet in the best possible sense. Noah stopped introducing her as an employee. He introduced her as family, because that is exactly what she was. On the anniversary of the accident, they did not sit in darkness the way Noah had done every year before. They gathered in the living room, they held hands, they prayed, and Noah looked at his daughter standing beside him, standing, and the question he had carried for years finally released its grip. He stopped asking why. He whispered, "Thank you," instead. He finally understood what his wife had believed so deeply that she had lived it without needing to explain it. Miracles are rarely loud. They do not always arrive with thunder or spectacle or front-page announcements. Sometimes a miracle begins with a simple song hummed in an empty hallway, a pair of willing hands stretched open, and two little girls who still believe their mother is close enough to see. That night, laughter filled every corner of the house, and Noah understood that the greatest healing had never been in his daughter's legs. It had been in his heart. The moral of this story is this: do not allow the wounds of past betrayal to seal you off from future blessings. Sometimes the very person you greet with the most suspicion is the one heaven carefully selected to restore what you were certain was gone forever. Faith, love, and a willing heart can reach places that money and medicine will never find. And the love of those who protect us, it does not end. It continues its quiet, faithful work long after we can no longer see the hand